Ana Paula Veloso Fernandez and Roberta Cristina Veloso Fernandez. The first case on our list is one of the most active serial homicide prosecutions in Brazil today. Two 35-year-old identical twin sisters enrolled at the same Brazilian university. 4 poisoning deaths in 5 months. 5 months, and a coding system in which each killing was described as a TCC, the Portuguese acronym for an academic thesis project, with a starting price of 4,000 reais. Ana Paula Veloso Fernandez and Roberta Cristina Veloso Fernandez are 35-year-old identical twin sisters from Guarulhos, São Paulo state. Both were enrolled at the Universidade de Guarulhos. Per Metrópolis, Ana Paula was studying law and presented herself as a nursing professional. Roberta provided what investigators describe as financial consulting and message coaching for the operation the two sisters had been running. Between January and May 2025, 4 people who had encountered Ana Paula Veloso Fernandez died of poisoning. According to CNN Brazil, the substance used in every case was terbufos, a powerful agricultural pesticide that in Brazil is sold illegally on the street under the name chumbinho. The first victim was Marcelo Hari Fonseca, the sisters' landlord. He died in January 2025 at his home on Rua São Gabriel in Guarulhos. The motive, per investigators, was control of the property where the sisters had been living. After his death, Roberta later admitted she had set fire to the sofa where his body had been left because it had begun to decompose. Ana Paula filmed the act on her phone. The second victim was Maria Aparecida Rodriguez, a friend of the sisters, who died in early April 2025 after eating a piece of cake and a coffee Ana Paula had brought to her in Guarulhos. The motive was framing a former military police officer named Diego Sakaguchi Ferreira for her death. The third victim was Neil Correa da Silva, 65, in Duque de Caxias on the 26th of April. He died after eating a poisoned feijoada. Per the police investigation, the act had been ordered by his own daughter, Michelle Paiva da Silva, who was a law school classmate of Ana Paula's at the Universidade de Guarulhos. The price was 4,000 reais. The fourth victim was Hader Masres, a 21-year-old Tunisian man who died on the 23rd of May in Brás, São Paulo. Per Metrópolis, Ana Paula had met him on a dating application. After his death, she falsely claimed she had been pregnant with his child in an attempt to claim the rights of his widow. How does a case involving 4 poisoning deaths in 5 months, all linked to 2 identical sisters at the same university, take so long to come to the attention of police? The answer is that, in fact, the police only began investigating 16th of April, 2025, after a fake complaint about a poisoned cake at the Universidade de Guarulhos triggered a closer look at Ana Paula. The investigation was led by Delegado Halison Miguel Ideao Leite of the 1st Police District of Guarulhos. From the WhatsApp messages, the audio recordings, and the sofa-burning video recovered from the sisters' phones, the full scope of what they had been doing finally became clear. Per terra, terbufos was found at Ana Paula's home. The sisters had coded each killing internally as a TCC, the Brazilian university acronym for Trabalho de Conclusão de Curso, the final thesis project students complete to graduate. Each TCC per recovered messages had a starting price of 4,000 reais. On the 17th of October 2025, prosecutors Rodrigo Merli Antunes and Vânia Cáceres Stefanoni of the São Paulo Public Ministry filed formal denunciation papers charging each twin with 4 counts of qualified homicide. Ana Paula has been held at the Penitenciária Feminina de Santana since the 4th of September 2025. Roberta has been held in Guarulhos since August. Michelle Paiva, the daughter who had ordered the killing of her own father, was arrested on the 7th of October. The defense team is led by lawyer Almir da Silva Sobral, who continues to dispute the use of the term serial killer in describing the sisters. While the Veloso Fernandes case is one of the most active serial homicide prosecutions in Brazil at the time of this video, the next case is one of the most well-known closed cases in modern Brazilian memory. It also took place at one of the most ordinary moments imaginable: a wife, a husband, and a phone call about a pizza delivery. Elise Matsunaga. The next case is one of the most televised homicide cases in modern Brazilian memory. A wife who shot her husband, the chief executive of one of the largest food companies in São Paulo, then dismembered him in her own apartment, drove the body parts towards Paraná, and dumped them along a highway in Cotia. Elise Araujo Quitano Matsunaga was 30 years old at the time of the crime. Per Wikipedia, she had been born in the interior of Paraná. At 18, she had moved to Curitiba to complete a nursing technical course. She had then moved to São Paulo, where she had worked as a high-end escort. In 2004, she met a man named Marcos Quitano Matsunaga through a dating site. Marcos was the chief executive of Yoki, one of the largest food production companies in São Paulo. He was the grandson of the company's founder. The two married in 2009. By 2012, they had a daughter, who was 1 year old at the time of what would happen next. On the night of the 19th of May, 2012, in the couple's apartment in the western zone of São Paulo, Elise discovered Marcos was having an affair. According to her later confession to police, she shot him at point-blank range with a .380 pistol. What she did next was the part of the case that would shock the country. She placed his body in the guest bedroom. The next morning, while their 1-year-old daughter and her babysitter were in the next room, Elise dismembered the body in 6 pieces. According to Jus Brasil, she paused the work to eat breakfast with her daughter and to make conversation with the babysitter. How does a wife in a high-rise apartment in São Paulo dismember a body in the guest bedroom and continue to function as a mother for the rest of the morning? Elise placed the 6 body parts in trash bags and inside 3 travel suitcases. On the 20th of May, she got into the family car and began driving towards the state of Paraná. Halfway through the trip, she changed her mind, turned around, and drove instead to the city of Cotia in Greater São Paulo. There, on a highway shoulder, she pulled the suitcases out of her car and left them. The body was found on the 23rd of May. Marcos was officially identified on the 4th of June 2012. The case was solved by building security cameras. The footage showed Marcos last visible at around 7:30 in the evening of the 19th of May, going down to the lobby to fetch a pizza, on the phone with his father. The next morning's footage showed Elise leaving the same building with 3 large suitcases. She was arrested on the 5th of June 2012 and transferred to the Penitenciaria Feminina de Tremembe. She confessed. The jury trial was held between the 28th of November and the 5th of December 2016. The verdict was delivered at midnight by Judge Adelson Pakowski. Elise was convicted of qualified homicide and destruction or concealment of a corpse. She was sentenced to 19 years, 11 months, and 1 day. In 2019, the Superior Tribunal of Justice reduced her sentence to 16 years and 3 months in recognition of her confession. On the 31st of May, 2022, after approximately 10 years served, Elise was granted liberdade condicional, the Brazilian equivalent of conditional release. She moved to Franca, in the interior of Sao Paulo. According to ABC do ABC, she has worked briefly as a construction site worker and as a rideshare driver before public exposure forced her to stop. She is required to remain in Franca with judicial authorization for any travel. Her daughter, who was 1 year old at the time of the crime, lives with her late father's relatives. In May 2022, Elise gave a public statement that has since gone viral. She said in Portuguese that she was very happy to have won, that she could not undo the mistake she had made, that she was getting a second chance, and that unfortunately Marcos was not. She said she believed in spirituality, that he had already forgiven her, and that she asked for it in her prayers. The statement re-entered viral circulation in 2025 after the release of Prime Video's Tremembe. While Elise's case was solved by hotel security cameras, the next case is one of the most well-known crimes in the history of Brazilian television. And the verdict in that case fundamentally changed Brazilian criminal law. Paula Thomas. The next case is one of the most well-known crimes in the history of Brazilian television. A young actress on a Globo telenovela, an actor on the same show whose role was being reduced. The actor's wife, who was 4 months pregnant at the time of the killing, and a verdict that would catalyze a national petition with 1.3 million signatures and would ultimately change Brazilian criminal law forever. Paula Nogueira de Almeida Tomás, currently legally known as Paula Nogueira Peixoto, was 19 years old at the time of the crime. Per Wikipedia, she was born on the 7th of July, 1973 in Rio de Janeiro. She was 4 months pregnant. She was married to a Brazilian television actor named Guilherme de Padua. The couple were preparing to welcome their son, Felipe. The victim was Daniela Perez Gazola, a 22-year-old actress born on the 11th of August, 1970. Daniela was the daughter of one of Brazil's most famous telenovela writers, Gloria Perez. She had been cast in Globo's 1992-93 telenovela De Corpo e Alma, written by her own mother, where she played a character named Yasmin, opposite Guilherme de Padua's character, Bira. On the afternoon of the 28th of December, 1992, the cast filmed a scene in which Daniela's character ended the romance between Yasmin and Bira. According to testimony cited in HBO Max's Pacto Brutal, Guilherme had been frustrated for some time because his role was being reduced. After filming wrapped, Guilherme set up an ambush. He met Daniela at a gas station, struck her unconscious, and transferred her into his own car, which was being driven by Paula. The two then drove her to a deserted lot in the Barra da Tijuca neighborhood of Rio. What happened in that lot is the part of the case that fundamentally changed Brazilian criminal law. Daniela was harmed 18 times with a sharp implement. The cause of death was hypovolemic shock. Both Paula and Guilherme participated. Her body was then left in a wooded area in Barra da Tijuca. How does a Globo cast member end up in a deserted lot in Rio with two people she had been working with for the better part of a year? The answer was that by the 28th of December, Guilherme had been planning the killing for some time. Paula was arrested on the 2nd of January 1993. She initially confessed, then retracted her statement, claiming she had been at Barra shopping at the time. The jury trial was held in January 1997 at the Tribunal do Júri of Rio. Both were convicted of doubly qualified homicide. Guilherme received 19 years. Paula received 18 years and 6 months. Paula served 6 years in closed regime at the Polinter detention facility in Campo Grande, Rio. She was released to liberdade conditional in 1999. While imprisoned, she gave birth to her son Felipe and earned a law degree from inside the facility. In 2001, she married attorney Sergio Rodriguez Peixoto and dropped Tomás from her legal name. She lives in Rio de Janeiro and runs no public social media accounts. She petitioned the Superior Tribunal of Justice for the right to be forgotten under Brazilian law. The petition was denied. In 2017, the Justiça do Rio de Janeiro ordered Paula and Guilherme to pay 480,000 reais in moral damages to Gloria Perez. In November 2024, the court ordered execution of the debt by penhora, the forced seizure of property, including a Chevrolet Spin registered in her husband's name. Guilherme de Padua was released from prison and became a Pentecostal pastor in Belo Horizonte. He died on the 6th of November 2022 of a heart attack at age 52. The killing of Daniela Perez catalyzed something larger than the case itself. Gloria Perez, in the decade after her daughter's death, gathered 1.3 million signatures on a national petition demanding that the Brazilian Penal Code reclassify homicide as a hediondo offense, a category of crimes considered so serious that they cannot be eligible for bail or amnesty. The petition succeeded. Brazilian criminal law on homicide was permanently rewritten. If you have made it this far and you enjoy content like this, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the cases coming up next include the most controversial Brazilian child homicide case of the 21st century and a Brazilian lawyer accused of 4 killings across 2 decades, who has been on Interpol's most wanted list in 188 countries since 2011. While Paula and Guilherme's case rewrote the Brazilian criminal code, the next case is one of the most controversial Brazilian crime cases of the 21st century. Ana Carolina Jatobá. The next case is one of the most controversial Brazilian crime cases of the 21st century. A husband, a stepmother, the husband's young daughter from a previous relationship, an apartment building in Sao Paulo, and a forensic timeline that, in 72 hours, ruled out every alternative explanation the couple offered. Ana Carolina Trota Peixoto Jatobá was 26 years old at the time of the crime. Per Wikipedia, she was married to Alexandra Alves Nardoni, who was 28 at the time. They had 2 biological children of their own, born in 2005 and 2007. Ana was the stepmother to Alexandra's young daughter from his previous relationship with a woman named Ana Carolina Cunha de Oliveira. The young child's name was Isabella. She was a Sunday daughter who came over for visits on weekends. On the night of the 29th of March, 2008, the couple, the 2 biological children, and Isabella returned to the family apartment at the Edifício London on Rua Santa Leocádia, in the Vila Guilherme neighborhood of Sao Paulo. They arrived around 11:30 in the evening. Within the next 20 minutes, Isabella was harmed, and her life ended. Her body was found in the building's garden, having gone through a cut protective screen on the 6th floor window. Alexander's initial story, told to first responders, was that an intruder had entered the apartment and harmed his daughter. He claimed not to know who had done it. How does a couple, in their own apartment building, with a security desk in the lobby and the lift cameras running, claim an intruder was responsible for what happened to a young child? The answer was that by the 3rd of April 2008, the Sao Paulo forensic team had reconstructed the timeline. The fire department call was registered at 11:49 in the evening. From the moment the family arrived to the moment of the call, only minutes had passed. There was no 4-minute window in which any intruder could have entered the building, taken the lift to the 6th floor, harmed the child, and left without being seen by any of the building's cameras or the lobby security guard. Perhus Brasil. Isabella's biological mother testified to past tensions in the household. Isabella's grandmother stated in her own deposition that Ana Jatoba had not been fond of the young child. Both were arrested on the 2nd of April 2008 on a temporary detention order. On the 29th of May, Judge Mauricio Fossin of the 2nd Vara do Tribunal do Júri of São Paulo issued the preventive detention orders. The jury trial was held between the 22nd and 27th of March 2010 at the Fórum de Santana. The verdict was returned at around midnight on the 27th. Both were convicted of triply qualified homicide and qualified procedural fraud. Alexandra Nardoni was sentenced to 31 years, 1 month, and 10 days, plus an additional 8 months for the fraud charge. The TJSP later reduced his sentence to 30 years, 2 months, and 20 days. Ana Carolina Jatoba received 26 years and 8 months, plus the same 8 months for fraud. A habeas corpus petition was denied by Justice Carmen Lucia. Both were transferred to the Penitenciaria 2 de Tremembé. The progression through the Brazilian regime system has, over the years, been the most contested aspect of the case. Ana progressed to semi-aberto, the partial release regime, in 2018. The progression was temporarily revoked in 2020 over irregular family contacts. She advanced to regime aberto, full conditional release, in June 2023 after 15 years in custody. Alexandra progressed to semi-aberto in 2024 and aberto in May of that year. He registered a real estate brokerage microempresa with the São Paulo Junta commercial in 2025. Per former delegado Jorge Lordello speaking on a podcast, the couple separated in late 2023 and reconciled in February 2025. Their 2 biological children dropped the Nardoni surname in 2023. Isabella's biological mother, Ana Carolina Oliveira, has publicly opposed each progression in regime. Had the couple been sentenced under the Lei Henry Borel, passed in 2022 and which mandates a 50% minimum custodial period, both would still be in regime fechado today. While Ana's case has remained in the headlines through every regime change, the next case is one of the most unusual on the entire list. The accused has not been seen in public for over 15 years. Heloísa Gonçalves Duque. The final case in this part is one of the most unusual on the entire list. A trained lawyer from southern Brazil. 4 men dead and 2 more injured between 1971 and 1993. An estimated 20 million reais in inheritances from those deaths. An Interpol red notice in exactly 188 countries. And a woman who, more than 15 years after her conviction, has never been seen in public again. Heloísa Borba Gonçalves, who has used the legal names Heloísa Saad and Heloísa Gonçalves Duque Soares Ribeiro, was born on the 13th of March 1950 in Porto Alegre, Rio Grande do Sul. She is 75 years old as of 2025. Per Wikipedia and the Brazilian outlet Agência GBC, she is a trained lawyer who completed her degree in Rio Grande do Sul. She had her first child at 19 with her boyfriend, Carlos Pinto da Silva. The pattern that investigators would later trace begins in 1971. A boyfriend, a doctor, died in a car accident on the road to Taquara in Rio Grande do Sul. Heloísa inherited his Porto Alegre house. In 1977, while on holiday in 77, while on holiday in Salvador with Carlos Pinto da Silva, the boyfriend who had fathered her child. Carlos was shot 5 times in the chest. He survived. He identified Heloisa as the person who had shot him. He then withdrew the complaint. The case was dropped. How does a trained lawyer in Brazil, with a history of romantic relationships ending in deaths or attempted deaths, continue without facing charges for nearly 2 decades? The answer is that, until the 1990s, the cases had been investigated separately and none had produced enough evidence for a Brazilian conviction. In October 1983, her husband, Irineu Duque Soares, a Portuguese security guard with whom she had married in May with full community of property, was killed when their car was ambushed near Magé in Rio de Janeiro. The case was initially registered as latrocínio, a robbery-related homicide. In December 1991, a man named Nicolò Saad, 71, of Lebanese origin, died of cardiac arrest while still her husband. She inherited an estate then valued at around 30 million reais. She was later convicted of bigamy and ideological falsification for transferring his properties. In February 1992, Coronel Jorge Ribeiro, 54, a military officer, was found ended in his Copacabana commercial property. His hands had been tied. Heloisa was charged as the mastermind. In 1993, her boyfriend, Wagi Elias Morad, a Lebanese merchant, was shot dead alongside his friend Wagner Leno in Recreo dos Bandeirantes. After his death, Wagi's son Eli hired private detectives. On the 11th of October that same year, Eli was himself ambushed in Barra alongside police officer Luiz Marques de Mota. Officer Mota was ended at the scene. Eli survived after 2 weeks in intensive care. Per B News, investigators estimate Heloisa had accumulated more than 20 million reais in property through these deaths. The press began to refer to her as the Rainha dos Telefones, the Queen of Telephones, after her boyfriend Wagi's nickname, the King of Telephones. The Brazilian legal system finally caught up with her in 2011. After failing to appear at 4 scheduled trials, she was convicted in absentia by the Second Tribunal do Júri of Rio de Janeiro on the 26th of August 2011 of the murder of Coronel Jorge Ribeiro. She was sentenced to 18 years in closed regime, plus a separate 4 years and 6 months for prior fraud and bigamy convictions. The trial proceeded under the Lei da Cadeira Vazia, which allows convictions even when the defendant is absent. The prosecution was led by Patrícia Glioche. The Brazilian Supreme Court denied her habeas corpus in 2009. She has been on the run since approximately 2010. According to Aventuras na História, the Brazilian Disca Denúncia raised the reward for information on her location to 11,000 reais, the largest in the service's history at the time. An Interpol red notice was issued in February 2011 for her arrest in exactly 188 countries. Investigators believe she may still be hiding inside Brazil. Possible locations have included Rio Grande do Sul, Paraná, Barra da Tijuca, and Niterói. Interpol once located her in the United States. Per Brazilian extradition law, however, her Brazilian citizenship would prevent her extradition home if she were arrested abroad. As of November 2025, Heloisa Gonçalves Duque has not been seen. While Heloisa Gonçalves Duque has not been seen for over 15 years, the next case is one of the most striking examples of what Brazilian press has called the Viúva Negra archetype, the woman who marries men with life insurance policies and watches each one die. Marli Teles de Souza. Marli Aparecida Teles de Souza was 46 years old at the time of her arrest in November 2014. Per IPREV Santa Catarina, she had been a long-term resident of Caçador, in the western part of Santa Catarina state. Since 2000, she had been collecting a state-paid widow's pension. The pension had been left to her by her first husband, a Santa Catarina military police soldier named Nilson Carlos Teles de Souza, who had died on the 2nd of December 2000 at age 32. In the 14 years that followed, 3 more men in Marley's life would also die. The second was Vanyo Nordio, her second husband, a machine operator who died at age 38. Roughly 81,000 reais in life insurance and pension were claimed in his name. The third was a boyfriend named Jocenir de Carvalho, a farmer who died in 2012. Marley withdrew 195,000 reais in life insurance the following year. By the time investigators ordered Jocenir's body exhumed for toxicology, too much time had passed for the laboratory to confirm whether he had been poisoned. The fourth was a businessman named Rui Nadarchi Dias de Oliveira, 60 years old. Rui was the biological father of Marley's son, Ulisses Antonio Sousa de Oliveira. Per Athena Seguros, Rui had recognized paternity 10 years earlier. On the 25th of June 2014, Rui was found in his Ford F-250 truck along the SC-350 highway between Caçador and Taquara Verde. The initial cause of death was registered as ostensibly natural. How does a Santa Catarina mother, with no criminal record and a steady widow's pension from the state, end up at the center of the deaths of 4 men over the course of 14 years before any single investigator connects the cases? The answer was that, until 2014, no one had connected them. The pattern only emerged after Rui's death. Per Athena Seguros, Marley had reactivated contact with Rui by sending Ulysses to him, with what was framed as a request for help with a student loan. Rui agreed. The documents Rui actually signed, however, were not for a student loan. They were 2 life insurance policies totaling 1.26 million reais, both naming Ulysses as the sole beneficiary, and both with double indemnity clauses for accidental death. Less than a month later, Rui was forced to ingest 2 pharmaceuticals, a strong antihistamine called chlorpheniramine and a powerful sedative called levomepromazine. He did not survive. His body was placed back in his truck, which Ulysses then drove down a rural road and rolled into a wooded area. Toxicology, this time, confirmed both substances. Investigation was led by Regional Delegado Fabiano Locatelli of Caçador. Marley and Ulysses were arrested on the 25th of November, 2014. A search of Marley's home turned up a folder. Inside the folder were the personal documents of all 4 men with whom she had been involved. The jury trial was held at the Forum de Caçador on the 17th of February 2017, presided over by Prosecutor Fernando Rodrigues de Menezes, Jr. Marley was charged with triply qualified homicide for the killing of Rui. The qualifications were base motive, employment of poison, and dissimulation. She was also charged with procedural fraud, corruption of a minor, and 2 counts of attempted estelionato against the insurance carriers Caixa Seguradora and BB Seguros. In May 2018, the Second Criminal Chamber of the Santa Catarina Court of Justice not only confirmed but increased the sentences. Marley received 18 years, 9 months, and 10 days of reclusão. Ulysses received 17 years, 11 months, and 22 days of reclusão. Both have been imprisoned in Caçador since November 2014. The other 3 deaths were investigated but never prosecuted, owing to the lack of toxicological proof on the exhumed remains. While Marley's case rested on a folder found in her home in Santa Catarina, the next case took place in the state of Bahia and rested on a single agricultural pesticide that, in Brazil, can be bought illegally on the street. Wayne Brenda Oliveira. The next case took place in the city of Itabuna in southern Bahia and depended, ultimately, on a single agricultural pesticide. Two boyfriends ended their lives within 7 months of each other, both after relationships in which they had told family they were considering breaking up, both after consuming something prepared by the same woman. Wayne Brenda Gonçalves de Oliveira was 34 years old at the time of her arrest in June 2018. She lived in the Bairro, California neighborhood of Itabuna, a city in southern Bahia state. The first of her two boyfriends to die was Edvaldo Araujo Alves, 40 years old. Per Correo 24 Horas, Edvaldo and Wani had been dating for approximately a year. On the night of the 16th of April, 2017, around 11 in the evening, Edvaldo became suddenly ill at Wayne's house. She took him by taxi to the Hospital de Base de Itabuna. He died at the hospital. The cause of death was registered as a fulminant heart attack. Edvaldo's family suspected something else. He had recently told them he wanted to end the relationship. The second was Evandro Bonfim de Souza, also 40 years old. Months after Edvaldo's death, Wayne began another relationship. According to Correo 24 Horas, Wani gave Evandro what she described as medicine. Within a short time, he had become severely ill. He was hospitalized and remained in care for 9 days. On the day he was scheduled to be released, he suffered a sudden cardiac arrest. Brain death was declared on the 3rd of December 2017. A gastric lavage performed during his treatment had revealed traces of a substance. How does a single woman in a single Bahia neighborhood lose two boyfriends in 7 months, both at age 40, both shortly after telling family they wanted to end the relationship, before the second death prompts the first to be reinvestigated? The answer was that, after Evandro's hospital lavage, the Departamento de Policía Técnica in Salvador had what it needed to begin testing. Edvaldo's body was exhumed approximately a year after his death. The DPT analysis confirmed terbuphos in his viscera. Terbuphos is the active component of an agricultural pesticide that, in Brazil, is sold illegally on the street under the name chumbinho. The analysis on Evandro confirmed the same substance. Both men had been killed with the same poison. Per the delegada in charge of the investigation, Magda Figueiredo of the Itabuna Homicide Division, Wayne had used chumbinho to end the lives of her partners as soon as she discovered they intended to end the relationship. Wayne was arrested on the 11th of June 2018 at her home in Bairro, California. The mandate of preventive imprisonment was issued by the Vara do Júri da Comarca de Itabuna. The investigation was led by Delegada Figueiredo of the Itabuna Homicide Division. The first jury trial was held on the 31st of August, 2021, at the Forum de Itabuna, with Judge Renato Alves Cavicciolo presiding. Juan was tried on this occasion only for the killing of Edvaldo. She was convicted of triply qualified homicide. The qualifications were base motive, employment of poison, and the use of a method that prevented defense. She was sentenced to 21 years in closed regime. She had been detained for approximately 4 years, awaiting trial. She continues to deny the crimes. The second trial, for the killing of Evandro Bonfim, has not yet produced a verdict and publicly available reporting. An instruction hearing was held on the 18th of September 2018 but no jury date had been scheduled as of the latest available reporting. The defense had filed an incidente de sanidade mental in 2019. A criminal appeal was active at the Second Criminal Chamber of the Bahia Court of Justice as of late 2024. Wayne is currently incarcerated in the Bahia State Female Penitentiary System. While Wayne's case rested on a single agricultural pesticide bought illegally in Brazil, the next case is one of the most internationally consequential cases on the entire list. The crime took place not in Brazil, but on a quiet street in Maryland, in the United States. And the appeal of the conviction was taken on without payment by an attorney who would later sit on the United States Supreme Court. Margarita Bonetti. The next case is the most internationally consequential case on the entire list. A daughter of one of Sao Paulo's old coffee dynasties, a Brazilian engineer husband, a domestic worker who had served the family since she was a young girl, a quiet residential street in Maryland, and a federal appeal eventually argued by an attorney who would later sit on the United States Supreme Court. Margarita Maria Bonetti, born de Azevedo, was estimated to be in her early 50s at the time of the United States indictment in 1999. She was the granddaughter of the Barão de Bocaina, a Sao Paulo coffee and banking magnate. The family residence was on Rua Piauí in the Higienópolis neighborhood of Sao Paulo. She had studied engineering. She was married to a Brazilian engineer named René Bonetti. The story begins in 1979. René accepted a research position with Comsat, a satellite company that would later be absorbed into Northrop Grumman, and the couple moved from Sao Paulo to Gaithersburg, Maryland. As what her parents framed as a wedding gift, the de Azevedo family transferred to the couple a Brazilian woman named Hilda Rosa dos Santos. Per the Justia federal court opinion, Hilda had served the de Azevedo family in Sao Paulo since the early 1960s, when she had been a young girl. She was black, illiterate, and spoke only Portuguese. The Bonettis brought her with them to Maryland in September 1979. What followed was nearly 19 years of slavery. Per the Washington Post, René confiscated Hilda's passport. Her visa was not renewed after 1984, leaving her undocumented. She lived in a windowless basement of the family's 4-bedroom Gaithersburg home with no toilet or shower. She was paid no wages for almost 14 years. She cooked, cleaned, washed 3 cars, walked the family dog, raked leaves, and shoveled snow. The Bonettis padlocked the upstairs refrigerator to prevent her from eating. Margarita assaulted her repeatedly. Hilda developed a benign uterine tumor the size, prosecutors later said, of a soccer ball, and a deep infected wound on her leg. Both went untreated for years. How does a woman live for almost 2 decades in slavery in a quiet residential street in Maryland without any neighbor, doctor, or social worker noticing? The answer was that in April 1998, neighbors did notice. They took Hilda to a hospital. She was found to require an immediate hysterectomy. A social worker named Annette Kerr alerted the FBI. In September 1999, a federal grand jury in Maryland indicted both spouses on charges of conspiracy to harbor an illegal alien, harboring for financial gain, and endangerment. Margarita fled to Brazil before trial. René was convicted in February 2000. On the 15th of August, he was sentenced by United States District Judge Deborah Chasanow to 6.5 years in federal prison, plus restitution to Hilda. On appeal, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit affirmed his conviction and ordered mandatory restitution for approximately 14 years of unpaid wages. The appeal was taken pro bono by a then private practice attorney named Brett Kavanaugh, who would 16 years later be confirmed as a Justice of the United States Supreme Court. The parallel civil restitution case in Montgomery County included orders by Judge Martha Kavanaugh, his mother, who froze Renee's assets days before sentencing. If you have made it this far and you enjoy content like this, take a second to subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next case is one of the most consequential Brazilian political crimes of the 21st century. And the closing case is one of the most painful homophobia-driven crimes Brazil has documented. Margarita has never been tried in Brazil. She spent approximately 2000 to 2010 in hiding in a small structure in the Jardim Carlos Lourenço neighborhood of Campinas under the alias Maria, waiting out the 20-year statute of limitations on her crime under Brazilian law. Per CNN Brazil, the statute has now expired in both Brazil and the United States. She cannot be prosecuted in either country. She lives in extreme decay in the family mansion on Rua Piauí. The Prime Video documentary A Mulher da Casa Abandonada, released in August 2025, includes Hilda's first major filmed interview, while Margarita's case ended without a Brazilian trial. The next case is one of the most consequential Brazilian political crimes of the 21st century. A federal deputy elected with 196,000 votes, a husband she had adopted as a teenager, and a household of 55 children whose finances would, at the center of it all, become the motive for the killing. Flordelis dos Santos de Souza. The next case is one of the most consequential Brazilian political crimes of the 21st century. A federal deputy of the Brazilian Congress elected with 196,000 votes. A husband approximately 30 years younger, whom she had adopted at 14 and married at age 24. A household of 55 children, spanning biological children, adopted children, and grandchildren. And a planning operation in which the deputy financed the purchase of the gun, recruited her own son to pull the trigger, and warned the shooter when to expect the husband home. Flordelis dos Santos de Souza was born on the 5th of February 1961 in the favela do Jacarezinho in Rio de Janeiro. Per the Câmara dos Deputados official biography, Flordelis grew up in extreme poverty. At 14, she lost her father and a brother in a car accident. She became a Pentecostal pastor and a teacher. By the late 2010s, her household was widely reported to include 55 children. Of these, 3 were biological from a prior relationship. 1 was biological with her husband, and the remaining 51 were informally adopted. Her husband was Anderson de Carmo de Souza, 42 at the time of the crime. Anderson had been adopted by Flordelis as a son in 1991, when he was 14. The relationship became romantic over the following years. They married in 1998. Together, they founded the Comunidade Evangélica Ministerio Flordelis in 1999. Following an appearance on Programa da Xuxa, Flordelis' gospel singing career took off. In 2010, she signed with the gospel label MK Music. In 2018, she won a federal deputy seat for the PSD Party of Rio de Janeiro with 196,959 votes. On the 16th of June 2019, around 4 in the morning, Anderson arrived home at the family residence in Pendotiba, in the city of Niterói. He was shot approximately 30 times in the garage. He was rushed to the hospital Niterói Dor in Icaraí. He did not survive. How does a Brazilian federal deputy with one of the largest vote counts in Rio de Janeiro state become the central planner of the killing of her own husband, a 55 children's father, in their own driveway? The answer was that, per the Public Ministry of Rio de Janeiro denuncia cited by CNN Brazil. Flordelis had been planning the killing for some time. Anderson had been managing the family finances. He had also been managing her career. Family members were financially discontented. An earlier attempt had been made by poisoning. The MP narrative was that Flordelis financed the purchase of the gun, recruited her own biological son, Flavio dos Santos Rodriguez, to pull the trigger, and warned Flavio when Anderson was about to arrive home that morning. Flordelis lost parliamentary immunity on the 11th of August, 2021 when the Câmara cassated her mandate by a vote of 437 to 7 for breach of decoro parlamentar. She was arrested 2 days later, on the 13th of August, by the Polícia Civil of Rio de Janeiro under a preventive detention order issued by the 3rd Criminal Court of Niterói. The jury trial was held between the 7th and the 13th of November 2022 at the 3rd Criminal Court of Niterói, presided over by Judge Neris dos Santos Carvalho Arce. The final session lasted 21 hours. Flordelis was convicted of triply qualified homicide, attempted doubly qualified homicide, use of a false document, and armed criminal association. She was sentenced to 50 years and 28 days. Her biological son Flavio received 33 years and 2 months. Her adopted son Lucas Cesar dos Santos de Souza, who had purchased the gun, pleaded guilty and received 9 years. As of November 2025, Flordelis is incarcerated at the Penitenciaria Talavera Bruce in the Complexo de Guericino in Bangu, Rio de Janeiro. Her health has deteriorated significantly. In February 2025, she published a letter on social media reporting an episode of stroke, fainting, and convulsions. On the 16th of September 2025, her attorney, Janira Rocha, confirmed a second principle of stroke in custody. Her appeal is pending at the Superior Tribunal of Justice. While Flordelis' case is one of the most consequential political crimes in modern Brazilian memory, the closing case on this list is one of the most painful homophobia-driven crimes Brazil has documented. Tatiana Lozano Pereira. The closing case on our list is one of the most painful homophobia-driven crimes Brazil has documented in the 21st century. A teenage son who had recently come out, a mother who lured him back home with the promise of reconciliation, 2 contracted men who refused to finish what the mother had hired them for, and a final report to the police that did not come from the mother, but only 10 days later, when the body had already been found in a sugarcane field. Tatiana Ferreira Lozano Pereira was approximately 30 years old at the time of the crime. Per Revide, she lived in the city of Cravinhos, in the Ribeirão Preto region of São Paulo state. She worked as a manager. She was married to a man named Alex Cantali Pereira. They had a younger son together. Tatiana also had an older son from a previous relationship. His name was Itaberli Lozano Rocha. He had recently come out as gay. According to his uncle Dario Rosa, speaking to international press after the crime, Itaberli had been very polite, had never quarreled with anyone, and had only had problems with his mother, who would not accept that he was homosexual. The crime took place on the night of the 29th of December 2016. Itaberli, a teenager, had moved to his grandmother's house some days earlier after being beaten by his mother. He had also denounced the aggressions to authorities days before. Per Out magazine, Tatiana lured him back to her own home in Cravinhos on the pretext of reconciliation. Inside the home were 2 men she had contracted, Victor Roberto da Silva and Miller da Silva Barisa, along with a 16-year-old. Itaberli was attacked. The 2 contracted men refused to finish the act. According to court testimony summarized by Tara, Tatiana herself harmed her son with a kitchen weapon. She then phoned her husband Alex, confessed what she had done, and asked for help disposing of the body. Tatiana and Alex drove the body to a canavial, a sugarcane field outside the city. They doused it in fuel and set it on fire. Tatiana waited 8 days before reporting Itaberli missing. The remains were found approximately 10 days after the killing, partially carbonized. Identification required forensic analysis, including DNA and a bracelet Itaberli had recently displayed on his Facebook page. How does a mother in interior São Paulo in 2016 contract 2 men to attack her own son in the family home and continue to post on Facebook about Christmas and family for the next 8 days before the body is found? The answer was that, before the killing, Tatiana had posted on Facebook from the 23rd and 24th of December photographs of Itaberli with her husband Alex, and her younger son. The captions read, in Portuguese, "Family first and good night, Merry Christmas." Per revida, the prosecutor at trial argued that the killing had been driven by homophobia. Tatiana denied homophobia. She claimed that Itaberli had been impossible to tolerate, that he brought men home, and that he used substances. The jury trial was held at the Tribunal do Júri de Cravinhos on the 27th of November 2019, prosecuted by Eliseu José Berardo Gonçalves. Tatiana was convicted of triply qualified homicide and concealment of a corpse. She was sentenced to 25 years and 8 months in closed regime. The 2 contracted men, Victor Roberto da Silva and Miller da Silva Barissa, each received 21 years and 8 months. The trial of Tatiana's husband Alex was postponed when his attorney was found to have a conflict of interest, having also represented Tatiana. Alex was charged with concealment of a corpse. Tatiana is currently incarcerated at the Penitenciaria Feminina de Tremembe. As of 2024, she is documented as having competed in the internal Tremembe pageant Miss Primavera in 2017, where she was awarded the title Miss Revelação, per Brazilian journalist Ulysses Campbell's reporting in his book Tremembe, The Prison of the Famous. The pageant has become its own subject of public fascination in Brazil, with several women incarcerated for high-profile killings serving as either contestants or jurors. The Escovador legal database lists 19 active proceedings in Tatiana's name in São Paulo state, suggesting continued legal activity around the case. The case has been widely cited internationally as evidence of the rise of LGBTQ violence in Brazil under the Bolsonaro government, including coverage in Out magazine, the Daily Mail, Vanguard News, and Rio Times. As of November 2025, Tatiana continues to appeal her sentence. This was all from our side today. Thanks for watching. Click here to check out another video.